So really excited to introduce our speakers for today. If you guys went to AWE this year in Santa Clara, you would have seen and probably heard from these speakers. We have Justin Sneddon, the group product manager, and we have Ria Bhatia, the senior product manager, and they'll be talking about a few different things. Justin's going to be introducing Lightship 3.0, telling you about our feature set and our improvements. And Ria is going to be talking more deeply about VPS, shared AR, and providing use cases, improvements, learning challenges, and then also sharing lots of resources so that y'all can get started with Lightship. So without further ado, would love to introduce Justin. I'm going to stop my screen share and have him take over and start presenting. Thank you.
Hi, hopefully everybody is seeing my screen, and that was a seamlessly bad transition from me where I put a different document on the screen. Oh well, here we go. So Lightship 3.0, we've spent the last 6 to 9 months now working on a major rewrite of some of the core features in Lightship to just make it more compatible with Unity AR Foundation and work on some features for performance and usability in general. So one of the biggest things, as I mentioned, is this version of ARDK is now 100% compatible with AR Foundation. And the reason why this is a big thing for us is it means that if you had an existing project that wasn't based on Lightship, you can convert it to Lightship very easily now. It is literally a tick box that you turn on an existing project, and what that enables you to then get access to is all of the extra features that Niantic have. Your meshing and your contextual awareness features will now work on Android devices, not just LiDAR devices. You have access to some of our debugging tools like the Playback and the mocking systems that we provide directly in the editor in those projects. And it also means conversely, you get access, if you're the other way around, you're a Niantic developer, you're familiar with our features. When you start a new project, if you start it from the AR Foundation system, you get access to all of their best-in-class tools alongside ours. So that's what I'm going. Face effects exist, body tracking exists. You can then combine it with our advanced meshing to have long distance and semantic information in the scene, and you can start to build some quite complex things using the best of both worlds. And the last point here is very true. If you just open Unity's examples now and turn on Lightship, what you'll find is a very interesting thing. If you're running it in the editor, before you got, oh, you have to build this device to see anything. Now, when you run it in the editor because you turned on Lightship, it mocks some of this stuff. So some of the buttons that were grayed out are not grayed out anymore, and you can press them and they'll work in the editor, which is a really big feature of ours, which I'll talk about in a bit. Another thing that is really interesting here is we pick up some of Unity's optimizations for rendering as well as some of our new features and performance for Unity. So again, we get the best of both worlds. We're using less memory, we're using faster rendering, and we're starting to see easier use of things like if you want to use the universal render pipeline, that was while we supported it, it was a little bit complex in our old system. Now just the default tutorials that you walk through for Unity work, and all of those features run as they should without extra customization from us. And a last point here is a kind of important one for us too. So we are doing a bit of work in the headset space, obviously, like everybody is. We're trying to make everything work with Snapdragon Spaces, which is the Qualcomm system for headsets. And this part of this rewrite was to enable that, which we can talk about a little bit more in the future when we get to having betas that support these headsets. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about a few of the features before handing it over to Ria to continue on the deep dive. So Lightship in general is made up of these 4 places. You have contextual awareness, which is telling you about the world. You have multiplayer, or shared AR, as we call it here, to be able to play with your friends. You have the virtual positioning system to get very accurate at a location AR. And then you have the maps, the 2D maps that we use in our games to be able to work around the world. And when you combine all of these things together, you get what we call a location AR game. So let's dive into the first category. So what is contextual awareness? It's a group of features here that you can see. It's depth, it's meshing, it's Gameboard, it's occlusions and semantics. So it's all the sort of core things you need to make an AR experience. You want things to feel like they're in the real world, and you want those things to be able to interact with the real world. So navigate through it, query what's around them, make decisions about you for your AI or what your effects that you want to run look like. So the first one here is depth, occlusions, and meshing. These all sort of tie together for your basic placing an object in the scene. So you can see Peridot, our most advanced AR game here running, where you get amazing occlusions. The little creature feels like it's in the world. It's occluded by the things behind it. You can do various semantic tricks as well, which we'll talk about next to tell it things about the world. And on the right is one of the samples that we're working on that just shows you not only can you make the creature look like it's in the world, you can modify the world to look like something else, which both of these are very unique use cases. The place where we're a bit different from our competitors in this space is we want to enable further distance, like long distance things. You're outside, you kind of want to get past the 5-meter range of a LiDAR device. And something we'll show you towards the end is where we're getting to with this, which is we're trying to get you into that 20, 30-meter range, which is an amazing place to be when you can have your digital creatures running around the world procedurally in a large space. So next, semantics. So not only do you want to be able to place something in the world and have it feel like it's there, you want it to understand what's around it. So what semantics gives you is the ability to say, what is on the screen right now? So you can see in the little Peridot example here for foraging, this is being used to say, dig in this place and find something. So it knows that it's digging in brush or flowers or dirt or ground, and you can change the kind of thing that it returns based on that. What it's found, and the image on the left, which is one of my very early debug images, which is great that it's in the deck, is just showing you what that means. So sky is detectable, foliage is detectable, grass is detectable. And you can see that these regions are colored differently because you get back that overlay that you can use. We're also working on getting this data into the 3D space so that you not only get it for the frame that you're viewing, but you remember what was around you. And that's something that we can show you later as well. But we have sort of 20 different classes. Most other SDKs don't provide this many classes. A lot of the time it's just person segmentation. But in our case, we are adding more and more outside classes to be able to enable the gameplay that you see in Peridot and other games that we make. Okay, next. So again, making that creature feel like it's in the world. You don't want it to sort of always just walk in a straight line or climb up over things if you're using meshing, or in the worst case, if you're using a plane, walk straight through a table or a chair. So you need a navigation system. So we provide what's called Gameboard. And this is using very similar to anything you would find in Unity for creature navigation. You can tell it to go to a place and it will walk through the space correctly, jump up onto things, walk around corners, and you can see the little Peridot doing it in a very nice example, and you can see Doty doing it in the very default example there that I made in my house. This is extremely powerful, and we're working on making this more performant is the main thing we're doing with ARDK 3. Next, we have Playback, and I've mentioned before this is kind of my favorite feature of all features. It allows you to take a recording anywhere, and this recording's in the London office where I used to work. Now what you can see is I've got lots of doties running around the London office on the mesh, and that's my little game where they're trying to just shoot each other, play dodgeball or something is essentially what the idea here was. But I don't have to run it on the phone. I can just literally play it in the editor. This saves you many, many, many hours working on what it would actually look like in the real world. So this is one level above mocking. So mocking means that you are sort of simulating the world and you move the camera around it. Let's say that gives you 60% confidence that what you built work. This is at this particular location, how well does it work? And you can make many of these recordings. So you could say, how well does it work at the beach? How well does it work in a forest? How well does it work in the middle of a busy street? How well does it work in a house? And you can have these for quality control and also fast development. So it's a very powerful feature that we enable by just simply turning on Lightship. Even if you didn't use any of our other features, this one thing will make you work a lot faster. And at that point, I'm going to hand over to Ria, who's going to start talking about some of the new features that we've made in shared AR and VPS.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see all of you here. And if you were in some of the eighth wall sessions, you might have seen me there. And I might have introed a little bit of AirDK, but today we're going to deep dive just into AirDK. So I'm really excited to talk about this. The first thing I want to touch on is one of, I guess, the mission of Niantic is to inspire people to explore the world together. And a lot of the features I'm going to go through and the services that I'm going to go through really touch on that mission, where we believe that people are going to navigate to these locations in their local communities, experience AR together, come closer. We believe that technology has been pretty isolating today. Of course, there's now a global community through the internet, which is also amazing. But we believe these services and features eventually will create these closer knit communities in the real world, which is what we're really excited about. And so I'll go quickly through our Maps SDK and what you can do with that, our visual positioning system, and then shared AR. Oh, I'm sharing. Um, all right. So the first feature, Lightship Maps, you can easily bring in our Lightship Maps SDK into your application, and then you're able to see a 3D map. So we have all of the geometry, building geometry, et cetera. So your end users can ultimately navigate to real world locations and then engage in AR. You can also procedurally put content at locations on the map tiles, and then you can easily pan and zoom as well, which is really exciting. So we've seen a lot of apps just kind of take this wholesale and customize it based on their aesthetics. Our visual positioning system, probably one of the most exciting services and the most forward-thinking services that we offer in Lightship today, and we're really just getting started. So we've activated thousands of over 200,000 locations where end users can go localize, and then we understand as like you as developers will also understand where end users are with centimeter level accuracy, which is really exciting. So you can have really accurate AR experiences, which really no other platform can offer today. We have 200,000 of them. You can go and activate your own locations. Over 248 million people live within a 1.3 kilometer radius of a VPS activated location. We've been doing this with Pigo players and Ingress players. So that's how we are kind of building out this map. And we have over 300 experiences already published or created within Lightship, RDK, and 8th Wall. We're going to go through some of the specific use cases, but you're able to get 3D meshes of the real world, bring them into Unity, and then content author on top of them. And so you can use the geospatial browser to locate and find different locations within your communities. You could also use UGC is what we call it, where end users can go to these locations and drop content, and then that content can persist over time. And then they can come back to it, they can adjust the content, and then that persists and lives in that local community for forever. Cool. And this is an example of our geospatial browser. Sorry about the quality. It's a little funny, but you can go into lightship.dev. You can go into the geospatial browser. You can locate and find all of these locations. You're able to bring down these meshes, download them into Unity, and then you can anchor content underneath the AR location. So shared AR is near and dear to my heart. We've been working on this for a couple years. If you're used to AirDK 1 or AirDK 2, we also did offer shared AR. We offered it with ad hoc mapping and with image target colocalization. We've actually rebuilt the entire stack. So it's more performant, it's more maintainable from our perspective, which is great. And we've also integrated it with VPS. So now you can use shared AR at VPS locations. You can easily have end users go to these locations. They can navigate with a Maps SDK. You can show the locations with Coverage API onto that map. And then they can localize with VPS, and then they can automatically, as they localize with VPS, join the same shared AR session. So it actually feels like AR is just seamlessly integrated into your real world location, which is really exciting. Everyone that tries out this feature feels like it's magic. So I definitely encourage you to try out our samples, to try out colocalization. It's just really simple and easy. We support rooms, so multiple players can easily just join the same room and engage in the same AR session. These rooms, it's not attached to AR, so it doesn't need to be AR based, but of course we're an AR platform. That's where colocalization comes in, but you can have remote AR sessions as well. We offer networking, so all of our network messages are relayed through a server in Central US. We are going regional, so we're going to bring up another server in APAC and also in the EU, so we can meet your players where they are. You can integrate in with netcode for game objects, so we offer an integration. So if you're familiar with a networking stack already, you can use it from Unity. But we've also seen a lot of success stories where people just use our low-level APIs directly. That'll be a bit more performant, but you won't get as fancy of a high-level stuff as you may want. Cool. So co-localization, probably one of our most exciting features. This is an example of what it looks like. So you can get peer poses so you understand where everyone's device is relative to each other and relative to the shared space that you're in. The act of co-localization just means you're creating this shared space where we understand where everyone is and we understand where the virtual content is relative to each other. So it feels very real when everyone can see the same content at this exact same location. And we're moving very slowly, but it actually updates really quickly. So definitely try it out with your friends and your co-developers. Just us walking around. And we're using VPS for co-localization in this aspect, but you can also use image targets. Okay, I'm about to show you a really cute sample and example of using VPS and shared AR together. The sample will be available for you all, so feel free to pick it up and try it out. We're also going to be delivering to all of you a UX flow. So we know how important it is for you all to hopefully focus on the content and not necessarily the UX of how do you get people to a location? How do you integrate the Maps SDK with all of these different features with shared AR and VPS? So we're doing all of that for you at the top of the sample, but here's some of the content. It's called Emoji Garden and it's super cute.
Together.
There you go. Yeah, so that was just a really cute example. And that sample is going to be available to all of you in ARDK very shortly. So now I'm going to deep dive into two of the use cases that we support today with VPS. The first use case is a bespoke flow, and it's very similar. We're using some of the same language that you'll see on the eighth wall side. So we're starting to make it a bit easier to go across both platforms. But our bespoke flow basically means that you as a developer can author content at very specific locations. So say you have a community park or location and you want to create content that's highly persistent and highly, I guess, relevant for that location. We believe that highly relevant content is more acceptable for the communities in there. So it'll be easier for those communities to realize why they want to go to that location, why they would localize, why they would learn more about that location potentially, or experience some sort of gameplay. And so, yeah, we make it really easy for you to literally just drag and drop objects onto the mesh to create all of the animations and gameplay that you want. And everything gets anchored underneath the AR location, and anything anchored underneath will get persisted. So when you go to that location, you'll be able to localize and see that. So that's our bespoke flow. It would be hard for you as a developer to do this for hundreds of locations. We don't offer tooling to make it easy to persist content at scale like that yet. But the other flow that we have is our procedural UGC flow. So this means, and you'll see this with the Emoji Garden sample as well, where end users will go to these locations. They are the ones that actually place the content. So they say like, hey, I'm going to place Emoji Garden here. And then you could choose to persist that. So when an end user goes back, that content is exactly where they left it. And potentially the state of that content is exactly where they left it, or it could reset. It's whatever you choose. A lot of our developers believe that this is how they're going to scale. So maybe you have very specific experiences that you want to use the bespoke flow for. Maybe it's a tourism map, maybe it's something else. But if you want to have a real world game kind of go across the entire world, this is really the way to go. And here's an example of Hot Dark Matter. So Matter AR is available on iOS and Android today in the stores, and they use VPS for a laser tag experience. So I'm just going to show you a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we love working with our developers directly. And so I love that we're starting to see lots of classic games from our childhood kind of come out in AR. I think that's also kind of how computers started, with really classic games showing up. And we love working with you guys. So we're going to continue to improve VPS based on developer feedback that we get. And same with shared AR. Cool. So some learnings and challenges that we've gathered from our developers and just kind of being in this space for a long time. We've learned that AR is definitely better with friends, and shared AR creates a sense of community and engagement that you wouldn't otherwise get with single player experiences. We've also seen that multiplayer content is more easily shareable and more likely to go viral. In today's day and age, a lot of our marketing and a lot of how kind of the newer generations are getting their content is through social media, through TikTok and Reels and all of that. Multiplayer, we've seen it go viral. So we definitely encourage that, kind of get as much as content as you can out there, because we're trying to educate all these end users on how to interact with AR, how to get used to it, and how to accept it in our society. We also believe that multiplayer will make AR more acceptable in public and private spaces, which is really important for VPS. Today, it might be a little awkward, and we've definitely seen that it's awkward to hold up your phone and localize and engage in AR experiences. Of course, Pokemon Go kind of went through that, and now players kind of play together, which is amazing. But if you have multiple people around you, it feels more acceptable. And so we encourage you all trying out multiplayer because of that. Some challenges, especially with multiplayer. So everything can impact latency. It's really important to understand what you're networking versus what's just happening per client. We've seen out of sync issues across clients. So it's really important for y'all to think about what things need to be in sync versus what things can be computated per device and per client. More QA time 100% is needed. You need to get multiple people together to test out stuff. And if you're co-localizing with VPS, you're currently restricted to just VPS activated locations, which can be a barrier to entry for end users. We are working on a project to reduce this friction and allow you to use VPS anywhere, but that's still in the works. Some high-level 3.0 improvements. So if you were using 2.0 before and now you're coming over to 3.0, here are some of the biggest changes that we've made in the platform. And again, this is all based on developer feedback that we've been gathering. The first thing was we heard that developers didn't want to think about UX so much. And we have an amazing design team in-house to Niantic who have been working on games like Pokemon Go and Ingress and Peridot and Pikmin Bloom. And it's just really amazing. So we put them to work and we got them to work on a VPS localization UX. So you have the Maps SDK coming together with VPS, coming together with shared AR, and it'll help end users navigate and find these VPS activated locations. And we've done our own kind of research and studies to understand the best way to get users to localize. And there's kind of different UI that you can use and just put into your app. We also have reduced and simplified the flow from remote content authoring. I think before it was really hard for developers to get started, even some of our most advanced developers. We've made it so easy. You can get started in like 30 seconds and start to anchor content into the world with a bespoke remote content authoring flow. And with our geospatial browser online. We are starting now. We offer default anchors in the coverage API. So this was, if you're coming from 2.0, this is a huge change. Before you couldn't target localization. So that meant there might be multiple maps at a location that you could have ended up localizing to, but we weren't giving you an ID or anything to tell you where exactly you were localizing. That's completely changed. With a default anchor, you're able to target localization. So you're able to say, I am here as an end user, give me a list of IDs of where I'm near. And then you're able to use that default anchor and target localization. And then if you're in a multiplayer experience, it's really important that everyone localizes to the same map. So you're all seeing the same content at the same time. So this is really going to help you for persistent use cases and shared AR use cases. And then now we offer VPS co-localization with shared AR, which is another huge feature. Cool. I'm going to hand it back over to Justin to go through our roadmap.
You can keep sharing, so I'll just talk. So hi everybody. Yeah, so we'll just talk about some of the things that we're going to work on shortly after we get 3 out to you all. So 3 is in beta right now, and you can use it. You can just go to the website and grab it. In mid-October, it'll be the official release. So we're just clearing out the last lot of bugs. You know, get it to be performant and get it to be as stable as we can possibly make it. But the video you're seeing on the left is the thing I really wanted to talk about more than anything else. This is long distance meshing that I alluded to earlier. This is just dynamic. It's not the VPS. This is all procedural. So what you can see here is the whole street was instantly meshed as soon as they put the phone up. No one else in the world can do that. And we're about to let everyone in the world do that with Lightship. So this will be one of the first features we put out in like a 3.1. So you've probably seen demos like this before, and it's always been tied to geospatial APIs. This is full procedural. Honestly, I feel like the blending of these two things together is what we need to make AR work, because it has to work everywhere. When you've got the VPS, you get the best possible thing that you can get because you're at a location where it works. But it doesn't work everywhere, and you need tools that'll bridge the gap. So we're also working in the space in between to make our procedural tools much better. So that was a little sneak peek. Hopefully that was enjoyable for you to see. I'll go back to the other points that we've got here. So we're also going to make sure that we have a better migration guide. We did get we've only pushed out what is not a proper migration guide to the beta docs. So don't panic when you haven't seen a very long document. We are internally porting all of our own games to 3.0 and improving our documentation and the process, so that by the time we hit that mid-October, we can give you a very clear, here is how you migrate. It is a major revision to the API, so it's not a trivial change. It's not like the previous versions where you could probably have done it in an hour. You're going to have to give yourself a few days to maybe even weeks, depending on the complexity of the game that you want to port. Starting a new game, very easy in 3. Moving a very complex game means that you have to think through each feature. But what we have done is allow you to have both the APIs in the game at the same time, so you can slowly remove 2 while fixing 3 to work through Unity's foibles with changing out things like this. The other thing that I've got in the shortly after section that we should talk about is semantic meshing. So this is what I alluded to before. So if you imagine this really long range mesh exists, but it also has baked the semantics into it. So it knows that the ground is the ground, the buildings are the buildings, the cars are the cars, the trees are the trees. It means when you turn away from something, it still knows that information. It's not just what's in front of you, it's anything that has been meshed, which means you can start to write more complex gameplay. Like, I want to spawn a creature that's not in view right now, but I want it to spawn from where there is water. So if you turn back around, it would be in the right place. So that's what semantic meshing is going to give you. We are also working on drift mitigation for the VPS, as Ria alluded to earlier, and expanding shared so that you have regional servers, so that it's not all running through the US. There's many other things that we're doing, but these are the ones that are closer to being in the hands of users, so they're the ones that we're talking about today. Thank you. And I'll hand it back to Chanel, I think.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. If you want to go to the next slide, I think we can talk about the resources really quickly. Awesome. So if you would like to learn more about the Lightship products, features, and platform, please visit lightship.dev. We have a page on the website dedicated to documentation as well. And we have a Git where you can access a bunch of sample projects. And then, as always, please join our Discord so that you can stay updated to all of the information that we have. And I just shared these links, but the emojis came out weird too, so apologize for that. And then we're gonna begin Q&A time now. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Zoom Q&A. Jesus and Herberto were already in the Q&A answering some questions. I want to ask Jesus and Herberto if there are any questions that people have typed in the Q&A and you've answered, but you feel like we should just read it out loud to the entire group because it's very valuable. Were there any questions like that?
So I guess the easiest one, and this was probably for you, is the recording. Where will it be available?
That's a great question. So the recording is going to be available on Discord and as well on YouTube. So if you go to our Lightship YouTube page and you subscribe, you will get a notification when that's uploaded. It should be uploaded in a few days. I would want to say about 48 hours. We should have it up online, and we'll also share that YouTube link to the Discord. If you're not part of the Discord, please join it. And I think someone's saying the Discord link is not working. Maybe mine is not updated. Hopefully, maybe Herberto, you can drop the Discord link in the chat. That'll be helpful.
I will. Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. Were there any other questions we should read out that were already answered? Otherwise, we have lots of questions. We can ask Justin or Ria.
There was a, oh, right.
Did you?
I think Ria, you're muted. Is Ria talking?
She's muted.
Ria, you're muted. Ria, you're
I'm so sorry. So are you planning to do host migration on shared AR? I thought that was a really good question. If you want to get around that restriction, it's a restriction that we have with netcode. You need to have a host. It also makes some development easier, but you can just use our shared AR APIs directly in Emoji Garden, which is going to show that off as well. Yes, and I think that was really good one. I also saw a question about rooms and how long they're available for. They're available for about a month, and then we do monthly maintenance. They may delete, but if you don't delete it, they'll be alive for around a month. Let us know if that requirement doesn't work for you, if you need something better. We also have a real-time data store that attaches to the lifetime of the room, so you can put any information like game state or whatever you want for the life of the room as well. So you can do like turn-based games over a long period of time.
awesome. And then I think we can start moving to some of the open questions.
So the lots of questions popped up there is the time frame on long distance meshing. That'll be the end of this year. So literally we will get 3.0 out the door as a full release in mid-October, and then that will be in the next version after that.
And what about, will 3.0 be compatible with OpenXR for XR devices?
So we have some compatibility with OpenXR, and that is something that we're working through. At the moment, we're compatible with AR Foundation, which means if the plugin provider has made the thing work with AR Foundation, it's not too hard for you to use it with our stuff anymore. And yes, we're slowly working through making things more OpenXR friendly. And one of the main reasons we did all the re-architecting is to be able to do these things more easily over time. But I don't have a time frame on saying that we are 100% compatible with OpenXR.
Yeah. What about scanning framework to 3.x? I know we've been talking about this internally as well.
So scanning framework is the one feature that will not be in GA. The team are working through different models around how they want to provide scanning framework, whether they want to give a lower level API to it or not, and we'll have more details on that post the full release.
What about Apple Vision Pro? I think I'm kind of curious about this as well. Just the best person to answer.
Yeah, so our headset strategy is focused on Snapdragon Spaces and Qualcomm, and this is because they have an open platform, which means we can run our computer vision algorithms on the data from the sensors. Vision Pro and Meta's Quest devices don't give you that access, which means it's very hard for us to do computer vision when you don't have the camera image. So we're working with them to see what can be done in that space, but at the moment we are not able to run a lot of our systems on their devices, but that comes down to getting their APIs updated to allow that kind of access.
And then there's another good question from Susan. Hi, Susan. It's good to see you again. Is it possible to replace the texture in a 3D space based on segmentation before you could only change the color?
Yes. It comes down to how you want to do your UV mapping. So what you saw, the little demo of walking through the train station where I was texturing the world in the deck, basically you need to use a world space texturing technique to do that, which is like triplanar projection or some other shader technique. And then you can write a tile-level texture into the world. So you can change what things look like through those methods, but it just requires a bit of technical art leverage to get the thing to work the way you want it to be.
Do you have an example of that that's available?
And I'll probably push a sample on that. Well, that exact sample of the little creatures walking through the dungeon will be available sometime soon. So you can steal my shaders if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. It looks like a lot of the questions were already.
Someone also asked, is there a way to add a VPS location for a limited amount of time? And today, yeah, you can use private scans, of course, you could integrate that into your app, but it's only one node and one scan, so we can't guarantee localizability would be too high, and the quality of the map might not be great because we're not able to build the map. It's only one node or one kind of small map area. And so otherwise, we are working on something called private VPS. The system is, there's no timelines for ARDK as of yet. We're working on it for 8th Wall first, but something that we will probably offer in 2024. So you can create these private maps. You can have them available for a specific amount of time for a private location. We'll go and build the map, and we'll do all the fancy things that we always do, and then it can get deleted, or it can stay online as long as you want. So in the works, but no timelines yet. Can we transform a private scan into a public one? That's a great question. My gut reaction is no, but maybe Roberto, yeah.
No,
No,
you
you
can.
cannot, but that would be a great feature to add.
So you cannot. Oh, am I
How
muted?
about
No,
3D object tracking?
yeah. So you cannot transform a private into a public one. You'd have to recreate it and add more scans to it. Yeah.
Okay, great. How about 3D object tracking?
So we are working on 2D object tracking, as in get the bounds of an object. So these are, if you think about the semantics use cases for Peridot, where it was like forage here and tell me what's there, you get sort of 20 classes. With 2D object tracking, I can give you hundreds of classes because it's a simpler ask. It's not trying to work out what the pixels are, it's the region. So that's a future research project that will probably get into ARDK next year. In terms of 3D tracking, that's a harder problem, and it also depends on kind of what you mean. So there's different versions of, do you want to find this particular object? Like I scanned my printer and I want to find my printer. Or do you mean detection of a piece of mesh that you cut out? There are a lot of different nuances to this space. We are doing work in 3D detection, but it's a harder problem. So I don't have a timeline on have features for 3D detection.
Cool. We have another question, and TY, if you want to unmute and just give me a little bit more context. You asked, would we be able to build different experiences on different elevations, such as different floors of a shopping mall? Are you asking about that for VPS specifically?
I'm not sure exactly. I'm pretty new to this.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if we have the capability to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the kind of experience you're trying to enable. And then we have a suite of tools that could work, of course, like real-time meshing and contextual awareness that could definitely help and work anywhere, at any floor. With VPS, you're creating a very highly accurate map of the world, and you're accurately placing content in the real world. You're persisting that, and you're allowing multiple people to interact with that content if possible. So it just depends on what you're trying to enable. And I'm sure VPS today does not support having multiple elevations within a map. So you would most likely need to use something like image tracking if you want to place content relative to something, or any of our real-time kind of algorithms with semantic stuff or contextual awareness.
Okay, thank you.
As with everything, it comes down to the use case, but there will be ways to make things like this work once you have a clear picture of what you're trying to do in the space in 3D.
Great, thank you.
No problem. See if there's open ones. For an example, from a CAD model, are we able to track the real one? I think this is also the 3D object tracking, more context for it.
So you're saying I have this model, which is a chair, a particular chair, and you want that particular chair to be found whenever it's in the real world. So that's what I meant by that is one of the potential use cases for 3D tracking. We do not have that feature right now. Our research team are working on things in that space, but I don't have a timeline for that.
Yeah, we're definitely working on this, and this will actually be available sooner on 8th Wall as well. It's scan targets. Yeah. So, but no timelines. Yeah.
And as always, the devil is in the detail, because there are very different, there's different nuances to 3D tracking and the type of tracking that you can do.
Yeah, it may not be based on a CAD model, for example. It might be based on something else. I have pricing from 2021 from Holly. Since I signed up as a beta, what is changing with pricing for 3.0? So On the services side, that's kind of where we have more questions about pricing, and like this is something that we talk about. Today we're still free, so we're not like we don't have any pricing model. It's not particularly, yeah, nothing's changing from 2.x. That being said, as soon as we know if something is changing, maybe like things with scanning framework or our services in the future, we'll definitely reach back out to all of you before that ever happens.
Yeah. So yeah, we will be updating the user group as things change, but in general, we are free right now, and we're working through what our pricing model will be in the future.
What is the maximum area that can be scanned for an anchor? So I'm guessing this is like creating a scan right now in this, at least in Wayfair. It's not like an area limit per se, but there might be. I don't know, Roberto, if you have the specific answer for that, but there's a time limit for the scan.
So there's a couple things here, and this is a common misconception, so I just want to kind of go off a little. When you scan, when we mean like PPS, we don't particularly scan areas, we scan objects, is a better way of thinking about it. So you can scan like a statue, you can scan like a mural, something that's clear and recognizable. The area around that, once you have your object, we recommend you localize to an area around like 50 meters, I think, in diameter. Uh, so yeah, so there is no like hard limit on what you scan, but we do recommend you stick to like scanning uh, things like monuments, like recognizable 3D objects rather than just like the area, like the sidewalk or a building. That sort of thing doesn't work as well.
In terms of our localization, it's not gonna work as well, but yeah, eventually we're gonna have to map all the things.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel free to go wild. And we'll be offering something called LDL or LCAs, where you can do long distance localization, and you'll have these bigger maps. And so what we're doing with scanning is just putting together all these small maps, and we're putting together and we're building it. So yeah. But yeah, Susan, your comment, 15 meters around the VPS location. I mean, you can probably scan as long as the Wayfair app will let you, in terms of what we're actually offering in the geospatial browser. And in terms of how far you can localize from, it's still the 5 to 10 meter radius that you need to localize at from the location. And then, yeah, but we're working on a long distance one where you could localize from 50 meters away potentially, or even more. So that's in the works, but you still have to localize from 10 meters. And then as big as the map is, that's how big your experience could be. And so maybe like 10 meters, 15 meters is our max right now that we offer in the geospatial browser, but we're getting some more metrics, and we have some more projects to emit those metrics and those filters in the geospatial browser for you.
Sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, I meant 15, not 15.
Cool. A question for you, Justin. We've seen some great Niantic research projects at CVPR 2023, like virtual occlusions through implicit depth. Would you be able to provide any information on the timeline or roadmap for integrating these technologies into Lightship RDK?
So the timeline for that one's hard. So that's internally we call that binary depth, and yes, it's very cool. It allows you to get very, very good occlusions and very good path through when objects are behind things. We are working on it. It is not something I have like you will see this in ARDK in the next 6 months. With these kind of things, the devil's always in the detail. So that's a cutting edge paper about how to do something. We then need to take that and say, how do we make it go really, really fast on an average Android device? And that's where it gets hard. So we start to work through, take that thing, find all the edge cases that are going to break for the general users, and productionize it. So if we're lucky, sometime next year, we would be able to have that technology in our system. But with any research project that's that early, that it's a white paper stage, it takes us a while to get to the end goal.
Cool. And then we have another question. I think this is about VPS. When will combined meshes be available? When downloading the mesh for remote authoring? So I'm guessing you're asking about, I have created a public waste spot. I am now scanning. I'm submitting multiple scans at that waste spot, and I want that waste spot to be activated in public. So today we have backlog of a million or some amount of POIs for VPS. The way that we're doing activations from now on forward is we're prioritizing some of our biggest developers, some of the biggest applications that we see on the wild. So Hot Dark Matter, for example, Ingress, for example, and we're activating locations nearby their players. If you want to go and activate a specific location, you can go into the geospatial browser, search for it, and you can press this activate location button once it has 10 scans that we can use for building the map. So that's kind of a shortcut. If you need anything more than that, I would definitely reach out to me in the team to talk further about your application, kind of the needs of it, and how many locations you need. So we're doing that on a case-by-case basis. But otherwise, once we click that button, it's usually around 24 hours that you will see it in as a public waste spot. If you see any issues, again, reach out to us because we are still in our beta phase. So we're still working through some kinks. And once we get to GA, we will be solid, more solid. Oh, clarification. There are many meshes to download for a VPS spot. Oh, you're looking for a combined mesh. Yes, yes. This has been in the works for a long time. We are literally going to release this month. It's going through QA right now. So you'll have one mesh per location exposed in the geospatial browser. And we're going to put as many meshes as possible together. So you'll get the most complete mesh that we can give you. It's just, we're working through it in QA right now. So it's built, it's all done. Yeah. Hey, clap.
Always the best answer when the answer is it's almost done.
Yeah. It's gotta get it to the finish line.
Okay. For what I think you already answered the maximum area question.
Yeah.
So the next one was about a photo mode. So I can't really answer your question. Hey, how do we get a higher res image from the AR? I think it really depends on the implementation of what you're doing. You're always going to be limited by if you're taking a photo with your CG in it and whatever you're rendering out and how you're capturing that render. There are things you could do to do offline processing if you need higher resolution than what's coming out. But again, that's game code to say, please give me a higher resolution image and composite the effects into it. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that one. So I'll just move on because it's a very implementation specific.
The next question was, is there a way to have multiple anchor points for one project? So with the new flows that we're offering, the default anchor flow that we're offering, we recommend that you just anchor content relative to that one default anchor. It's going to be a bit easier for you to manage and track all of that content. We've also seen in AirDK 2.0, like a lot of our internal developers and external developers were doing just that. So that's why we kind of conformed the flow to be that. Of course, you could probably go into our level APIs if you want to create anchors and do that yourself. But we don't necessarily make that easy and we don't necessarily expose that in our high level constructs. So please talk to me if you feel like you have a reason for why you need that, but we believe that you're just anchoring content at that location and all of that content is just attributed to that one default anchor. Okay, another question. Chanel, feel free to stop us.
I think that we were doing great. Maybe we can take that last question from Aaron in the chat about Gameboard. Yeah.
So does Gameboard support vertical climbing movement with ground plane, horizontal transitions, 3D pathing, and flying? So we do not support horizontal, as in climb up a wall right now. We are working on improving a large scale improvement to the Gameboard, but this is a while off. And the idea being better support for things like this. For flying, you would have to just do the sort of cheaters version of flying, which is just essentially put your creature in the air, but still moving around on the ground to sort of pretend that it's flying around. So we do not do full volumetric 3D pathfinding through the space. We do regular on the ground, but it can understand, jump up on surface, jump down off surface.
Awesome. Well, we're at time. Thank you so much, Ria and Justin, for presenting and answering all the questions. Thank you, Roberto and Jesus, for being in the Q&A and helping everyone. Just some gentle reminders before we all end this call is that we have some exciting events coming up in San Francisco in collaboration with AWE San Francisco Night. They're having an event at the Niantic office, so please RSVP if you're available and in the city that day. Starting tomorrow, we're accepting applications for sample project submission ideas. So if you go to the Playcrafting website, you'll be able to submit your ideas, and we'll consider creating sample projects based off them. And then later on in October, we will be present at Immerse Global Summit. Keep an eye on Discord for announcements related to that. But such a pleasure seeing all of you online. Again, thank you, Justin, Ria, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.